Earlier this month, Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez called on county officials to increase the wages for county officers after the city of Houston announced a new police contract that would see increased wages of over 30% over the next 5 years. During a press conference on May 9th announcing his proposed wage increase for county officials, Sheriff Gonzalez stated, quote, "The cost of hiring and retaining quality peace officers is escalating quickly, and Harris County must act immediately and with urgency to ensure that our sheriff's office and our constable's officers have the deputies we need to patrol our communities, prevent crimes, and arrest violent offenders." So, who could have said that better than I did? The sheriff himself, and he's here with us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Hello to all of you. Great to be with you.
It must be difficult when you are so close in proximity with the city of Houston and the county for one to get an increase and the other not to. Fiscally, though, is it a responsible move?
I do believe it's responsible, and yes, it's difficult. And I think that historically, the Harris County Sheriff's Office has been woefully behind other law enforcement agencies, and and this isn't just a new phenomenon now. We're talking since the beginning of time when the Sheriff's Office was in place until now. And so I think now the market just continues to move and leave us further and further behind. So this is a real important public safety issue for our community. And so I think we need to all act with a sense of urgency. Everyone wants public safety. I feel it's the number one responsibility of any government, and so I do think it's a responsible thing to do as well.
When you say woefully behind, I mean, deputies were at 57,000, police officers in Houston were at 64. They're about to go to 81. I mean, that's a huge difference, 81,000 for a police officer and a deputy's at 57. And you compare it to Austin and Dallas. Austin's at 70,000, Dallas is at 68. So I don't think you've been pinned down on what kind of a raise you think is deserved, but what are you shooting for?
I would like to see for us to be competitive, to have parity as close as we can get. Look, I'm practical. I understand that there's a lot of other important issues that a growing county needs to address. But if other entities and government agencies have been able to get it done, I think we need to make sure that we're doing everything possible to do right by our frontline deputies, both deputies and constables as well, that play such an important role. And I don't know of any other agency that asks as much as our deputies, if you will, because we have the petrochemical complex. We have so many other, our threat matrix here in Greater Harris County is very large when you talk about all those threats, whether it be industrial incidents, severe weather events, so many other things.
Well, and so I know you have authority pretty much over all of Houston and Harris County,
correct,
whereas the police are just for Houston. So you guys have to cover it all in addition to what the police cover.
Yes, and we work very well with all our partners, and I'm so happy for them and those around the state that are doing well. I think it speaks well that in our profession that salaries are going up. I think that's a positive thing. We want our first responders to be well paid. And so that's what we're trying to do is just make sure that we're staying competitive. If not, it could be a real challenge. And to your point, Frank, about the footprint that we cover, we have a lot of significant events coming our way, from the World Baseball Classic to World Cup to so many other events. And we're a key partner to all of that to make sure that we're also supplementing resources. Just this weekend, we're down in Galveston as well, supporting a large-scale event that they had. So at some point, if we're going to be, stay relevant and be able to serve our daily threats that occur in our community every day, but then also to be able to respond to anything that may come our way, we want to make sure that we have adequate staffing, and that means retaining the quality people and experienced people that we have. When somebody picks up the phone, they want an experienced first responder to show up, and that's what we want to be able to deliver, and that we're also able to attract the future folks that are going to serve in our agency and constables' offices as well.
And I guess problematically is if you're so close with the city right here that you could lose officers over to them because the pay is better, which understandably. So you need to be on the same playing field. And we often hear from the police force about how hard it is to get recruits in. People are going to go somewhere where they can get better paid if they have a choice.
That's a great point, Ernie, and absolutely. And I remember when I first started my career many years ago, you signed up to serve an agency and you stayed for the duration. It's no longer the case. Right. I think now, and I can't blame them, first of all, it's tougher to attract into this profession for a number of reasons. That would be a show in itself. But I think now it's much more mobile workforce where, hey, they're paying a little bit more down the road and I don't have the same stress level. It's smaller or more niche, and I'm going to go work over there. Or, my wife got a job somewhere else, so I'm going somewhere else and get a job with another agency. And, you're certified around the state. It carries the same certification. So those are some of the challenges. So not only locally, and again, we applaud our partners. I'm glad to see that they're advancing with their pay, and our firefighters as well. We just want to be part of it as well, not fall further behind, because every raise, it just puts us further and further behind, and the impacts at some point are not going to be very good for this region. We want a safe region when they come here, and we need everyone to be operating at full strength.
Well, Sheriff Gonzalez, how do you feel safety is right now currently in Harris County?
I feel that we're definitely doing much better than some of the upticks we saw a few years ago. We see things overall moving in a positive direction. There's always things that we can all be doing to be much better. Obviously, your chronic offenders that are out there harming the community are something that for us, is a huge priority. We see a lot of different elements to crime continuing to evolve, like bank juggings, for example. It's something that we're seeing an uptick in our community. Domestic violence, many of our homicides have an intimate partner violence nexus to it. So we're seeing those challenges, and those are very difficult to work. But I feel that things are moving in the right direction for sure, and I hope that we're able to continue to do that. We're seeing obviously also threats with teen violence has been on the uptick, and it's very scary. I think there's about 80 or 90 teenagers right now that are being held in the juvenile system for murder or capital murder. Just think about that for a moment. 80 or 90, those are teenagers accused of a murder or capital murder.
I want to go back for a minute before we get into broader subjects, back to the pay situation here, and the nuts and bolts being there is a budget. We've got to find the money somewhere. Your thoughts on where maybe in the county budget that it does have room for growth for your pay, or is there outside ways that things could be increased to help that, so that we're not saying, which everyone freaks out when you say taxes, but how do you support then the raise of this? Not to say it's not important. I'm just curious how mechanics work.
Again, I know that there's two parts. One is to say, do we in concept support that there should be increased, more competitive wages? I think everybody would say yes to that.
Right.
I think the issue becomes then how do you pay for it? And so I think the timing is good right now to have those discussions. I believe that the county leaders understand the urgency of this. And I do want to say that over time we have received some raises. However, we've never quite closed the gap, and it only continues to grow. And so I think right now is good timing because the county is entering its budget planning process right now. Our budget cycle is different than the city's. So with that said, we're able to look at the budget holistically and really look at those things that are truly essential, and then look at things that may not be essential, and then also look at maybe projects or programs that were perhaps funded through ARPA that money has elapsed, and we'll, to see if we could pivot from some of that, if we could redirect some of the money with some of the positive efforts that we're starting to realize in jail population. We're starting to see more trials happening. A DA Tier, District Attorney Tier has done a good job, him and his team, of getting more trials going and expediting that process. So we're really starting to realize some positive outcomes on the jail population side. So we'll be able to hopefully start bringing back some of those high-cost outsourcing costs that we were having to put. So it's a combination of things, and maybe some of those monies on non-essential programs. And look, some of these things are hard. It brings tough decisions, but it's something we're not strangers to in our own households when we have to budget.
So people understand. Give them a picture of, if you can, if we start to lose officers, if we start to shrink this support, this security, what does the county look like? What do we face if we're not paying attention to this situation?
Yeah, not to be over dramatic, but really, I think we really find ourselves in a less safer climate. We have a lot of different threats that are out there, serious crimes, and it's really up to our first responders every day that suit up and do the tough work, they have to run into danger. And I know because we expect a lot out of them, whether it be an active attack situation, whether it be we're coming up on hurricane season. They don't get to go home and protect their own homes. They have to be out serving. I've seen them in action. And so if you start having brain drain, if you will, whether they go to nearby agencies, great for them, but they don't necessarily cover the areas that we do, just geographically. Right. And so we need to make sure that constables and deputies are still able to respond to those unincorporated areas and do it at a high level so that we can make sure that we're keeping violent crime at bay as best we can and that we're prepared for any type of situation. We cover in totality over 1,700 square miles. Wow. And folks also forget that our unincorporated areas are very urban now. It's not like some other areas where they may have an unincorporated area, but it's not very populated. Ours has the equivalent of the same amount of people that incorporated city of Houston does. So it's a huge challenge. So if somebody calls, we want to be able to respond in a timely manner and be able to take care of business. And we want to continue to deliver at a high level for our community.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, and now is the time to call and ask your questions for Sheriff Gonzalez. You can give us a call at 713-440-8870.
We have a YouTube comment, and I want to get to that, but I have one more question about the salary thing. How do you keep people from playing the game where, well, I'm going to go to HPD because they're paying me more, and then, oh, wait, I'm going to go back over to Harris County because now they're paying me more. Now, is there a pension incentive, or what would keep an officer there if the pay is fair?
Yeah, I would think that most would say that there are great benefits to our overall benefit package. Right. I think the county's done a great job over the years of having a really strong benefits package, but the issue is that many times somebody that's entering this profession these days isn't necessarily looking at 20, 30 years down the road.
No, I know.
Where it used to be. So a lot of it's going to be, what are you offering now? And the other thing I would say is, look, it's not only pay. I don't know if anybody necessarily gets into this profession or being a first responder to become independently wealthy per se, but what we want is to make it competitive. And I think if it's competitive, you do reduce some of it because, you establish a good working family, you like certain aspects of the job and it just becomes home for you. But when there's the disparity is so big financially, then it's hard to justify somebody staying if they could make a lot more just going down the street, wherever down the street.
Sure, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. Ultimately, yes.
This YouTube comment that I spoke about, this is from Alex Garza. He addresses it to HPD, but I think it's for you, obviously. It says, Houston remains a major hub for human trafficking, and I'm concerned about that ongoing issue. What are you doing to crack down on that?
We're doing quite a bit of things. One of the things that we're doing is we continue to we've expanded now even our jail intelligence operations. We operate the second largest jail system in the country, so we've been able to do a lot of jail intelligence inside. You may have seen some of the arrests that stemmed from jail-based investigations. That wasn't heard of years ago, so we've added that new element. We also work on different task forces that are multi-agency as well, and then we do our own investigative operations as well. We are a hub city. It's a very challenging issue because it's so often underreported, and obviously if somebody's under bondage, whether it be labor side or on the sex trafficking side or even involving children, they obviously operate in the shadows, but we do our very best. We even do roundups several times a year so we could go and find runaways, because we know that nowadays with these Romeo offenders that try to seduce these young teens, over time, that they're at high risk of falling into trafficking. So we do a multi-prong approach. We also work a lot with those women that may find themselves incarcerated. We're doing a lot more programming on that. Our experience has been, we know nationally that women in jails and prisons are the fastest growing population. And we understand that many times when it comes to women, there's a lot of unpacked trauma over the years of sexual abuse, other forms of abuse. And so the more we could address that, try to get them on track and support them the best way we can, and focus more on the offenders and support the victims, I think has been a good model for us, and I think we're seeing some very positive aspects here. One of the things is that here there's so much more awareness about it, and so you hear about a lot more of the issue here than maybe in other jurisdictions.
And Sheriff Gonzalez, you mentioned and you touched on the jail, and it's been understaffed for a long time. You mentioned the outsourcing of inmates to other jails. You've also said that that's going to be one of the most expensive things that the county will pay for this year at $54 million. Commissioner Tom Ramsey came out and said that he wants some reassurance that these issues of the jail outsourcing will be cleared up before they can support increasing deputy wages. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you explain that when you're looking for higher pay for your deputies?
Yeah, one thing, I think it's important to understand the context of it. One thing that I've said before is that we don't have necessarily a jail staffing issue. What we have is a jail population issue. And there's a distinction there, is that when you're bursting at the seams, which we were for such a long time, it just simply isn't sustainable over the course of time. When you look at average length of stay, the backlogs that were caused by Harvey and then COVID and then just other factors, trials not moving fast enough, all these factors really create a choke point, if you will, in the system, and you're still bringing folks in every single day. And so we're starting to see some more efficiencies and effectiveness in the broader criminal justice system. We're but one cog, only we're the most high-profile piece because that's the most visible one. But every step along the way has to be effective in moving cases along in a timely manner for everyone, as much for the victims as you do for those that are accused of crimes. And so I think it's hard sometimes to unpack to say, on one day we're going to turn the light out on this and bring everybody back, and and then the next day we're going to do this. I think it's a matter of working in tandem, strategic, being smart about it. We're already starting effectively to start a plan to start bringing more people back than what we're sending. And so I think, and I mentioned earlier, we're starting to see a positive traction when it comes to our jail population, where it's decreasing at a faster clip than it was before. Not because anybody's letting people out, just the disposition of cases. Let's hold people accountable. Let's send them to the state prison. Why just leave them stuck here? County jails were never designed to be long-term stays. They weren't. And when I go nationally, I speak to colleagues, they are just flabbergasted to hear what our average length of stay is compared to what it is in the rest of the state of Texas and the rest of the nation for a county jail system.
What is the average stay?
Right now, it's at about 180, and that's average, right? You have some that are there for murder that may be there longer and some shorter. I'm just saying average. Around the state of Texas, around 60 days for a county jail system. So we're about 3 times more. In some cities, it's like at 30. So they're like, wow, you 200 days? Well, it puts a big burden on the system with a lot of folks that don't want to be there. Their cases are stuck. 70% of 12% of our population right now are homeless individuals. Mm-hmm. We're not a homeless shelter. I'm sorry. We're a jail system. We need to be dealing with not social ills every day, but that's the, mental health. We're the largest mental health hospital.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, now that you've touched on mental health, Sheriff Gonzalez, I understand that looking within your department, March was a very hard month for you all. Y'all were hit by one who was current, and then 3 former employees all died by suicide. What type of mental health support is being offered to your deputies within your department?
Yeah, that was a very tough stretch for myself at a personal level, knowing several of them. And then, so my condolences go out to the families as well as everybody that's had to grapple with this. And suicide is such a tough thing here in our community. We see it on a regular basis, sometimes children as young as 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And I am very happy and proud of some of the services that we've provided years ago when I first launched our behavioral health division. It's an entire division at the hands of Dr. McNeese that has a team of dedicated professionals that work with our first responders to give them the support that they need. It's one of those professions where you see a high incidence of suicide, high incidence of divorce, alcoholism, and other factors. It's a very, again, back to the pay issue. It's like it's a hazardous, profession, and so it was a very tough month for us. Our team has all rallied together to move forward and honor those that, we lost along the way, and continue to find ways to support. We understand the impacts of PTSD, as those are traumatic things that they see every day, and try to end the stigma around getting support around mental health issues. Not only I have a long history of doing that for the community, but also in our own agency. We have a peer support team that we've grown to make sure that peers can offer support to their peers, because sometimes they may be able to relate better to a peer in real time rather than going somewhere. And so we've tried to add a lot of support services, and we're still trying to see what else we could be doing. And it starts with me as well. I want to make sure I'm looking out for my own self-care, because I think it starts at the top.
Our number here is 713-440-8870. You can call or text us your comments right now for the sheriff. We got a text in here. It says, for Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, the community thanks you for all your hard work and for keeping our community safe. Also, thank you for fighting to get higher pay for the deputies that keep us safe. Remember, when you text us, put your name there or a handle so we can refer to you by that.
So I have a question, and this may be a simple no, but is your department at all called upon by ICE to help with identifying or arresting undocumented people?
I want to just thank that person that's in that message. I know we don't have the name, but thank you so much for that kind message. We've always collaborated with ICE. We've always had a jail-based system where we've worked in tandem with them. Obviously, they have a role that historically they've meant to try to determine who may be a threat, and so that's been something that we've maintained over the years. So there's never been any disruption in that. So the collaboration has always been solid between ICE and us on a jail-based program, and then. Obviously, we understand that the issue around immigration nationally and policy shifts and changes obviously are an ongoing thing. And so we're in communication with them, and we have regular talks with them. It hasn't been something where they've called on us specifically, because I think we're such a rich environment here of some resources. It's a large metroplex, if you will, with regionally. And so our work has primarily been with them based on the jail-based program. It's what we've been asked to continue to do, and that's what we've been doing. And obviously, they also have street-level enforcement that they're kind of tasked with, and if called upon, then we're there to support as needed. But I think they've been able to move forward with their own mission, and there's been just cooperation as needed.
The number here, 713-440-8870. We have a call from Janine from West Houston. What's on your mind today?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. My question has to do with the security constable program that subdivisions can participate in to engage the constables to patrol their subdivision as a group. I believe our subdivision pays about $120,000 a year for this service of, I don't know how many hours it is per day or per week, but we get good assistance by the constables. They're very quick to come when we need them. I'm just curious, how does that money factor into the overall budget and to the, I understand the $57,000 a year as a salary. And the second question has to do with the flock cameras. A lot of subdivisions are putting in flock cameras around, and I wanted to know, how is that being utilized by the constables, and is it integrated enough so that, if something happens in a subdivision, the constables, can see it and respond?
Thank you for your call, Sheriff.
Thank you, Janine, for calling in. Yeah, the constables, the deputy, the contract system is one that's somewhat unique to our region, and many communities do take advantage of it, and that's great that she's very happy with the service. And so many of them, depending on how it's set up, do cover either the full percentage of what it costs to basically that deputy or deputies or deputy constables are assigned directly to that community and stay within that community. Sometimes there's a split of costs, so they spend some percentage of time there, and then the others could be utilized in the broader community for other enforcement efforts, if as needed. So that's the way it kind of works. So basically, if they want to cover the cost and have them assigned to the area, that's a decision that community makes, and it's kind of a fee for service kind of model. In terms of flock cameras, just in general, overall, I'm a big believer in technology being a force multiplier. We definitely have seen the benefits of the cameras in public spaces, and we leverage that, as I'm sure the constables and others do as well. So, obviously, technology is a key part of our society now, and it's something that we have to continue to evolve and incorporate into our operations. Again, no budget, no matter what, is ever going to be able to cover everything. And there's a lot of emerging crimes that utilize technology. And so it's something that we utilize, and we see it as a good tool, and all agencies do participate in using that technology.
As I understand it, you've talked a lot about the underinvestment in law enforcement in the 80s. And I'm wondering the parallels you can draw from that, or the lessons learned from that we should be paying attention to today.
What happens, though, we've talked a little bit about the constraints sometimes of budgets, and I understand it's difficult. I've been on that side of it before during my time on city council, and it's very difficult. I remember having to shut down, or was a part of a council that had to make tough decisions when it came to shutting down library hours, reducing swimming pool hours over the summer, potential layoffs and furloughs. All these things are very challenging. But if you start just having folks leave your workforce, then eventually you have to end up paying anyway to attract people to come back. And when you're talking about public safety, it's an essential service. It's one that I think anybody would say that's one of the key components of government, is to provide safety for their community, similar to infrastructure, public works, solid waste, those type of efforts. So I think what you end up seeing, especially in the 80s, is you start seeing, morale starts going down. People start looking for other jobs and other markets, and it really impacts just the safety of the community, as I mentioned. So, and then we're basically just having to end up doing the same thing anyway, which is, well, let's increase to attract more people. There's some agencies, obviously different dynamics, but in other states that are giving double digits plus bonuses just to attract. You see billboards all over, even here from other agencies in the suburbs, where you see, come work for us. It's they're reaching for different folks. And I'll tell you that here we're very fortunate in our agencies. We have well-trained. We invest a lot in training our first-line personnel. It's a shame to train them up, and local taxpayers pay so much only for them to go and ultimately serve somewhere else, even if they left, assuming that they left the region.
Yeah. Now, it's your third term as sheriff. What are some of the lessons that you've learned, and maybe some improvements since 2016?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I'm always I reflect on is that really public safety is a non-political thing, and at least it should be. I think it's something that, we want to make sure that people feel safe in their communities, that we're able to address any emerging crime threats that we may see out there. I think that it's important to understand the challenges of operating the largest jail system in the state of Texas, when you're dealing with issues, so many that intersect our work. Again, we operate the largest mental health hospital in the state. And it's very complex, and how dependent we are on the other cogs in the system, because if something is slowing down in other parts, it impacts our work tremendously. Being able to stave off a pandemic inside our jail system was a huge lift. We were all trying to figure it out as we went. And that was an incredible experience. Overseeing, our efforts with Harvey was an incredible experience. So crisis management has been I'm battle tested.
All right.
That's right. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you. Stay hydrated out there.
Sure will. I have my water right here.
Coming